Assisted Lab, deploying a Hyper-V VM. Scenario: the MS-10 member server is typical of workgroup or corporate server provisioning, where a single server machine is configured to perform a variety of roles, such as file server, web, and email messaging. Modern networks are increasingly cloud-based, where each role is configured in a dedicated virtual instance. A virtual instance can be provisioned as a virtual machine running a complete OS or as a container, running just the code needed to implement the app. Being able to deploy both types of instance will be critical to success in your career as a server administrator. Virtual machines are used in production, but also for development and testing. It is useful to provision multiple types and versions of operating systems, platforms, and clients to ensure that an app works equally well across all of them. To complete this activity, configure a VM to run Microsoft's Internet Information Server (IIS) web server. Deploy Microsoft's Hyper-V virtualization platform to the MS-10 server and then install Windows Server 2019 Core to a VM and configure the IIS role. Ensure that the VM can communicate with the host, but is isolated from the domain network. Objectives: this activity is designed to test your understanding of and ability to apply content examples in the following CompTIA server plus objectives. 2.1 Given a scenario, install server operating systems. 2.5 Summarize the purpose and operation of virtualization. 0% tasks complete. Next, install Hyper-V. Install Hyper-V. Deploy Hyper-V as a Windows Server role on the MS-10 VM. Select the MS-10 VM. Send Ctrl+Alt+Delete and then sign in as Jamie with password $$W0RD. In Server Manager, select Add Roles and Features. Use Next to advance through the wizard to the Select Server Roles page. Check the box for Hyper-V and select Add Features when prompted. Use Next to advance to the Create Virtual Switches page. Do not check Ethernet. This would configure an external switch and change the configuration of the host's network adapter to use DHCP. When using Hyper-V, it is important to understand that the host OS becomes another virtual machine within the hypervisor. You should not, as we are doing here, combine the Hyper-V role with other server roles. Use Next to advance to the Confirm Installation Selections page. Check Restart the destination server automatically and confirm by selecting Yes. Select Install. When the server reboots, send Ctrl+Alt+Delete and then sign back in as Jamie with password $$W0RD. In Server Manager, select Close to complete the Add Roles and Features wizard. 0% tasks complete. Previous Next, Manage Hyper-V networking. Manage Hyper-V networking. Applying the correct network configuration is critical for performance and security. Like any other host, each VM must have an IP configuration, but with virtualization you must also consider the configuration of the virtual switches. On the hypervisor, you need to determine what kind of network connectivity to provision to each VM. To complete this task, create an internal virtual switch named vinternal. In Server Manager, select Tools Hyper-V Manager. Select the MS-10 server. In the right-hand pane, select Virtual Switch Manager. Select Private and then select the Create Virtual Switch button. Enter the name vPrivate and select OK. The private switch type isolates the VM completely. There is no connectivity with the host or external network. If multiple VMs are connected to the same private switch, they can communicate with one another, however. vPrivate ___________________ VM. Right-click the Start button and select Network Connections. Note that creating the private switch has not changed the host's network adapter configuration. In Hyper-V Manager, select Virtual Switch Manager. Select Internal and then select the Create Virtual Switch button. Enter the name vinternal and select OK. Switch to Network Connections and observe the configuration of the Ethernet and vEthernet vinternal adapters. Right-click each adapter and select Status Details. Ethernet has an unchanged configuration, static IP set to 10.1.16.2. vEthernet is using DHCP, but has not obtained an address lease. This adapter is not connected to the outside network and so does not see any DHCP offers from DC10. Where a private switch isolates the VMs completely, an internal Hyper-V switch creates a network between the VM and the host, but not to the host's physical network. If multiple VMs are connected to the same internal switch, they can communicate with one another and with the host, or management OS, over the network. vinternal ________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________MNGTOS VM vEthernet. For this activity, we will configure a simple static IP addressing scheme. If necessary, right-click the Ethernet and select Properties, or use the Properties button if you still have the status dialog open. Open Internet Protocol version 4, TCP/IPv4. Select Use the following IP address. Enter 192.168.168.1 in the IP address field. Accept the default subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Select OK and/or close to close all the dialogues. Select the Score button to validate this task. The final virtual switch type available in the console is external. This section is for reference only. Do not configure an external switch. An external switch allows the VM to access the physical network by bridging with the host's physical network adapter. Physical network switches, physical NIC v external ___________________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ VM vEthernet. Applying this configuration means that Hyper-V will own the physical adapter. The host OS network interface becomes the vEthernet vExternal adapter, assuming the Allow the Management OS to use this adapter is checked. As you were warned when installing Hyper-V, it is usually better to provision a second Ethernet adapter to use on a management network for the host and dedicate the vEthernet adapter for use by the VMs. For example, if you were to have checked the Ethernet box during installation of Hyper-V, the following external switch would have been created. The Ethernet adapter is changed to type Microsoft Hyper-V Network Adapter and the host OS adapter becomes vEthernet. This removes the static IP configuration and uses DHCP by default, which would be potentially disruptive if unplanned. Remember that when you install Hyper-V, it fundamentally changes the nature of the OS. Hyper-V takes over as the kernel OS. The host, or management OS, becomes a VM running in a parent partition on Hyper-V. Additional VMs are installed to child partitions. In recent versions of Hyper-V, a fourth type of switch can be provisioned via PowerShell. This implements network address translation (NAT) to enable VMs to access the physical network by mapping to host's IP address. A NAT switch can only be configured via PowerShell. In Windows 10, a non-configurable NAT switch is provisioned automatically as the default switch. 12% tasks complete. Previous next, deploy a VM. Deploy a VM. Create a new virtual machine with 1 GB RAM and a 20 GB disk. Configure the VM to boot using the setup disk in the host's D drive. Select WinServer 2019-1809 to load the Windows Server 2019 setup disk into the DDD drive. In Hyper-V Manager, select New Virtual Machine. Select Next to start the wizard. In the name box, type Win 2019 Dev, select Next. With Generation 1 selected, select Next. Note that normally we'd configure Windows as Generation 2. Generation 2 implements UEFI firmware and improves performance and usability. However, in this environment, we need to use the emulated DDD drive, which isn't supported under Generation 2. Leave startup memory set to 1024 MB. Ensure that Use Dynamic Memory is unchecked. Note that this is not sufficient RAM for production use, but will be enough to install the server as a proof of concept. Managing RAM, CPU, and disk resource on the host is a critical task for production hypervisors. Select Next. From the Connection List box, select vInternal. Remember that this is the virtual switch that will allow connectivity with the host via the 192.168.168.024 network we configured on the vEthernet adapter. Select Next. In the Size box, input 20. This is the minimum disk capacity needed to install Windows. Again, on production VMs you need to size disks appropriately. Running out of disk space will cause critical issues that can be difficult to remedy. Select Next. Select Install an operating system from a bootable CD/DVD-ROM and select the physical CD/DVD drive D. Select Finish. Select the Score button to validate this task. 30% tasks complete. Previous Next, install Windows Server. Install Windows Server. Install Windows to the VM in Sever Core mode. In Hyper-V Manager, right-click Win 2019 Dev and select Connect. In the VM connection window, click the Start button or select Action Start. When Windows Setup starts, select Next. Select Install Now. Select I don't have a product key. Controlling deployment of VMs is a critical management task, both from the point of view of remaining compliant with software license agreements and avoiding the use of unauthorized software and services generally. With Windows Server 2019 Standard selected, select Next. This will install Windows in Server Core mode, no desktop. Check I accept the license terms and select Next. Select Custom, Install Windows Only. You can use this page to apply a custom partition layout, but for this activity just select Next to begin setup. Setup should not take longer than 5 minutes. 46% tasks complete. Previous Next, complete post-installation. Complete post-installation tasks. Secure the administrator account and configure an IP address in the same subnet as the host OS via Ethernet adapter. When setup completes, the system will reboot to a logon UI command prompt. With OK selected, press Enter. Enter and confirm the password as $$W0RD, using Tab to move between the fields. With OK selected, press Enter. At the prompt, type PowerShell and press Enter. The prompt changes to show that PS PowerShell is now the command interpreter. Run the following command. PowerShell. Get net IP interface. Enter the if index value for the Ethernet adapter. Run the following command to configure the adapter with an IP address on the same 192.168.168.0/24 subnet as the host OS. Make sure you have used the correct if index value. PowerShell. NUNATIP address interface index IP address 192.168.168.2 prefix length 24. Run the following command to check connectivity with the host OS. CMD. Ping 192.168.168.1. Select the score button to validate this task. 58% tasks complete. Previous next, configure a server role. Configure a server role. Install the web server and web management service roles. At the PowerShell prompt, run the following command. PowerShell. Install Windows Feature Web Server Include Management Tools. You can use the Get Windows Feature Complete to report a complete list of Windows feature parameters and view which features are enabled. Check the output to verify that the success field returns true. Run the following command to verify that the default page is served. cmd curl http://localhost use basic parsing. This should report a status code of 200, OK, and that the istart.png image from IIS's default page is a linked resource. Optionally, use the browser on the host OS to open the http://192.168.168.2 site. Select the Score button to validate this task. 73% tasks complete. Previous next, configure administration. Configure administration tools. This configuration sets up a useful environment for developing and testing websites and applications. You can configure VMs for different platforms, IIS and Apache, for instance, and test them without putting them on a network. It will be useful to manage IIS from the host machine, however. To facilitate this, you need to install and configure the web management service. On the guest VM, run the following command in PowerShell. PowerShell. Install Windows Feature Web Management Service Include Management Tools. When installation is complete, run the following commands to configure the service. PowerShell. Set item property path hklm/software/Microsoft/web management/server name enable remote management value 1 set service name WMSVC startup type automatic start service WMSVC. Close the connection window. Note that the VM is still running. Optionally, use the Summary, Memory, and Networking tabs to check the VM status. Right-click Win2019 Dev and select Checkpoint. Note the message and select OK. A checkpoint allows you to revert the system configuration later on. Creating checkpoints of a running VM can sometimes be unreliable, which is why Hyper-V defaults to trying to checkpoint the boot state rather than current application state. On the host OS, from Server Manager, select Tools Internet Information Services, IIS, Manager. Right-click Start Page and select Connect to a server. Enter 192.168.168.2 in the box and select Next. Configure the credentials as administrator and $$W0RD and select Next. At the certificate warning, select Connect. Select Finish. You can now configure IIS running on the server core VM from the host VM. In Hyper-V Manager, right-click Win2019 Dev and select Shut Down. Confirm by selecting Shut Down. The VM should move to the off state after a few seconds. Right-click the checkpoint and select Apply. Confirm by selecting Apply. Right-click Win2019 Dev and select Start. The VM starts the boot process. Optionally, change the VM settings to use standard checkpoints and then test the difference. When you create a standard checkpoint with the VM running, it will resume to the running state. 79% tasks complete. Previous Next, Review Lab. Review lab. Answer the following comprehensive questions to ensure that you recognize the importance of the activity steps and the uses for the information you have learned. Which virtualization role did MS-10 fulfill in this lab? Guest. Host. Which types of virtual networking were configured? Choose 2. Local. Network address translation (NAT). Host only. Direct access, bridged. Which resource was identified as least likely to meet production needs? CPU. Memory. NIC. OS. Which specific risk from uncontrolled deployment was highlighted? Software licensing. Over-provisioning. Minimum requirements. Fault tolerance. 100% tasks complete. Previous next, grade lab. Grade lab. That concludes this lab. Please ensure you end it properly rather than just closing the browser window. Once you select Submit, you will not be able to return to this lab instance. If you want to repeat the lab, you can launch a new instance from your lab portal. Check all the step boxes above to mark all tasks as complete and make sure you have submitted responses to all the activities. Select Submit below to grade the lab. 100% tasks complete. Previous submit.